In the state of Massachusetts, there are two kinds of name changes. One is what's referred to as an informal name change, and the other is a formal name change. Prior to 9/11, those two forms of name changes were legally recognized. After 9/11, the state only recognizes the latter, formal name changes. So in an informal name change, basically all you need to do is get some kind of, account in that new name, and you are good to go. A common way to get this done is to get a utility bill in that name, and bang, bang, boom, like that, you are now X. So in a formal name change, what you need to do is go before a clerk of courts, fill out a piece of paper. Then the clerk and or you will go before a judge and declare that you are X. The judge will ask you a whole bunch of questions, and like that, you are now X. Ta-da! Magic. However, at the same time, you have to pay a little bit of money, and that doesn't even begin to cover the administrations with the U.S. government and or state agencies. There you have to, jump through a few more hoops, but essentially, once you've changed your name, they have to recognize the name change. How did I get here? How did I get to changing my name, and why Miles, and what was wrong with my old name? Well, let's rewind the tape a little bit. I do have to do a little piece of business. One, thank you very much to Chris for the idea, because I wasn't planning on doing this here. I was actually planning on doing this, the name change story, in Boston, where it actually happened. And two, if you like this stuff, then like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we're good to go, kiddies. Miles was was supposed to be my son's name. How did I get to choosing Miles? Not why Miles, but how did I get to choosing it? Well, let's get into it. So, when I used to live in Woods Hole, and I would hang out on the wall, one day, in a bit of consternation, I met a man named Miles. He struck me as a very calm man, a very patient man, and a very placid man. And I liked his energy, if you want to think of it that way. He was just casual. I liked him so much that stuck with me for years. So by the time I got to be about 29, 30, I basically didn't like my life. And I woke up one day and started looking for change, as it were. And that change, I didn't know it at the time, was gradually edging towards that calmness, that patience, that quiet. So by the time 1999 rolls around, I'm doing a lot of personal growth work and clearing out the deciduous material of my life, and realize that after all that personal growth work, that I'm no longer my given name. And I knew immediately the name that I needed to choose, because I had already chosen it. It was my son's name. So I had a little conversation with him. I said, tell you what, I'm going to borrow it for a little while, but when you come along, I'm going to give it back to you. He said, okay, Dad. Mind you, this is my unborn son. So I borrowed his name. That's how I got to choosing Miles. So why didn't I like my given name? There was nothing wrong with my given name. Not at all. I just didn't like it. I always hated it. It always sounded like shit coming out of somebody else's mouth. What made it worse was the fact that I was always looking for gratification from other people. I was always looking to fill my own holes with other people. And that meant being the life of the party. And that's what my name meant, my given name meant. It actually means Old English sheepdog, but it also means lewd, blue, or party. I didn't know that. So, let's back up a little bit. Remember that guy, Miles? And right about that point in time, I was thinking, I want to be calmer. I want to be calmer. I want to be quieter. I want my life choices to be calmer and quieter. I don't need to be the life of the party anymore. And it just came to me, Miles. There you go. So that's why Miles, more than anything else. Okay. Now let's back up a little bit more, because it's kind of sort of important. Originally, I wanted to shoot this in Boston at the actual space that I actually changed my name in. And to be honest with you, it's been 20 years and I have no idea where it is. I can't remember exactly how to get there. So not so much with that idea. So the year is 1996 and I'm part of a dance community. And that's Dance Freedom and Dance Friday. This is a freestyle dance community, and they really extol the idea of personal growth work through dance, personal discovery through dance. And if you can do that, you're doing pretty good. So I started doing a lot of personal growth work, and discovered one day through hook or by crook, more like by hook, that I didn't like myself all that much. I hated myself, actually. But I didn't know that yet. That year, 1996, I went to what is euphemistically called dance camp. And I only went for a weekend, but it was a weekend that changed my life. And it's not because of the events at the camp, nor is it about the people that were at the camp. As a matter of fact, they were superfluous to the actual camp itself and to the actual process of what actually happened. So I went there up there for the weekend and danced my brains out and met a whole lot of really cool people. And because I wasn't part of a family group, I basically had my own time. And this is a clothing optional weekend or 2 weeks at dance camp. And trust me, there are a lot of, while that may sound like, oh, wow, it's not. There's a lot of boundaries around personal space and personal safety. So none of what you might think happens. It's not free love and sex. None of that happens. I mean, it may happen, but there's a lot of consensual discussion that happens around that stuff. So yeah, not so much with the doesn't happen. It may, but it never happened to me. So that weekend, for some reason, I decided to go down to the lake. And it's not actually a lake, it's a pond. It's a kettle pond. It is a crystal clear kettle pond. It's one of the very few that I've ever actually seen where you can actually see to the bottom from the middle of the pond. And this is a deep, deep, deep kettle pond in the woods of Maine. And in the center of this pond is a raft. And I hadn't been out to the raft all weekend, so I went out to the raft. So I took off all my clothes and I started to swim towards the raft because I didn't have swimming trunks. And because it was, clothing optional, who cares? And furthermore, nobody was around. They were all in their family groups. It was like 5 o'clock right before dinner time. So whatever, see ya, have fun. So I decided to take off my clothes and to swim out to the raft. So as I'm swimming out to the raft, I notice a couple of things start to happen, and it's really subtle. It's really almost imperceptible that the cares of my life start to slip away one by one. You see, prior to coming to the camp that weekend, I had just come back from the Kodak Center, a week in Maine, teaching Photoshop to photographers. And I came back to a pile of bills and didn't have the money to pay those bills, even though I just got paid, as it were, walking out the door from the Kodak Center. But I had, monster bills at this point. And at the same time, my girlfriend at the time was just freaking out. And she was having a lot of insecurity about what we were to each other, and I just wasn't ready to have that conversation with her. And at that point in time, also, my rent was due, and I didn't have any money to pay for it. I had exactly 1 can of beans left in the refrigerator, and I decided to go for this weekend up to dance camp, the crossover weekend between the 2 weeks of dance camp. If I didn't mention that before, I'm mentioning it now. There are 2 weeks of dance camp, and there's a crossover weekend, and I decided to go for that crossover weekend. So before that crossover weekend, I get a phone call from a client who wants to spend about $18,000 in ad revenue. And I'm like, okay. He's like, so what are you going to charge me? And I said, I'm just thinking about, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, and I need a new machine. So I asked for what I wanted, and he sent over the check, and that basically took care of all my money needs. So that money weight was off my head. The girlfriend called me up that very morning, Friday morning, and she said to me, she did this, not I, she did this. She said to me, yeah, I don't want to be involved with you anymore. I think I need to be on my own. So, as I was swimming out to the raft, my cares began to fall away one by one. They all started to disappear. Money, relationships, place to live, a job, all of those things, because they were taken care of, because there was enough, because I wasn't living in disparity, I was living in parity at that point. Right then, right as I left Boston to come up to dance camp, those things, they finally started to coalesce in my brain, and they just fell away. But so by the time I actually reached the raft, something shifted. The door opened. So what was the door? The door was a state I had never experienced before, and it was joy. In my 35 years of life, 34 years of life at that point, I'd never experienced joy. There's happiness, but that's not joy. Joy, because this is a different kind of joy. It's a type of joy where all of your needs are met, and you're not relying on anyone else's experience to generate that joy. It is internally generated joy, and I'd never had that before. Once you have a small taste of that, a very, very, very small taste of it, you don't want anything else. There is no drug. There is no experience that is greater than that state of joy. It is raw, it is powerful, it is life-changing on multiple levels. So as I pulled myself up onto the raft, I realized that I was in a state of joy. I didn't know what to call it, but I was in a state of joy. I was in a state of euphoria. And that's where I stayed for a good 3 weeks until I had to deal with life. I didn't stay at the camp for 2 weeks, or for 3 weeks. I had to go live life, but every day, there was a little bit less joy, and a little bit less joy, and a little bit less joy. Till about 6 months later, I was sleeping one night, and late in the night, the wee hour of the wolf, the joy came back to visit, and I was like, oh, I remember what you guys are like. I remember this. And I woke up in a state of joy, and I went right back to sleep. And I never forgot it. That started me on the pathway towards change. So that change opened the door to other things, other states of being. I wanted more joy in my life. And once I had a taste of it, I didn't want anything else. And I moved heaven and earth to make change in myself, make the joy more possible. But there was a lot of deciduous material in the way. There was a lot of hurt relationships that I created, a lot of just nastiness in myself that I needed to clean up. So I started on a path of self-discovery and a lot of personal growth work to clean up those places. It took about 4 years. It's not something that happens overnight. And the work is never done. It's a constant struggle. But near the end of that process, that was about 1998, I woke up one morning after a lot of personal growth work the week before and a lot of therapy work. I was in therapy 3 times a week for that, which cleaned up a whole lot of stuff and left a whole lot of stuff undone that I'm still, working on, because the work is never done. It's always a state of clarity, of getting to a state of clarity. So what was that state of clarity? It's a state of realizing that I had a lot of stuff that I needed to clean up. And then going about doing that actual work. And once I started that place, once I started doing that work, I liken it to a house that where the first floor of that house is where you live, and the second floor is your intimacy space, and then you have an attic or basement. Most people have attics and basements, and the attic is where you store all of your stuff, all of the stuff that you don't need anymore, and you tend to label it with boxes. Label the boxes with titles of this is that relationship, or that is that experience that you put away. And I went up to my attic, my metaphorical attic, one day and realized, and this is the process of cleaning it up, and started cleaning up those boxes, of going through those boxes, pulling everything out of those boxes, putting it away, and then removing stuff that I didn't need anymore. And then finally realizing that the attic was actually a hallway, and there were lots of doors in that hallway, and behind each door was more boxes. Oy. Suffice it said, I had a lot of work to do. So that was the clarity part of realizing that I was needing to clean up that hallway and all of the boxes behind those doors. Not an easy task. It's a lifelong task. It's a lifelong process to get to that state. So, to make a very long story short, I finally got there to a place where I could actually... You're going to love this part. I'll stop talking for a little bit so you can see this. That is the Knob, by the way. One of my favorite places in the world. Unfortunately, it's closed for renovations, so I can't take you all the way out there. I'm kind of sort of breaking the rules at this point, being out here at this point. I've kind of sort of gone beyond, a little bit beyond the signs that say don't go out there. So, my bad. So, to wrap this all up, I cleaned up my emotional state. I cleaned up my mental state to get to the point where I woke up that morning, looked myself in the mirror, and realized that I was no longer my given name. And that it meant nothing to me. All the stuff, the deciduous material, had been pushed away from it or cleaned up to the point where I could actually look at myself and go, I'm not that person anymore, and I don't need to be that person anymore. I don't need to live those expectations of what that name means and all the stuff, all the baggage that comes with it. So I freed myself of it. And in that moment I knew, and immediately, right in that moment, I knew that I was on the pathway towards Miles. And that's when I asked my unborn son if I could borrow his name. He said yes. I promised I'd give it back to him when he came along. And from that moment, I became Miles. And then slowly at first, I told my closest, nearest, and dearest about the process. They'd been watching it all along anyways. And I had just come forward with that new revelation of this is who I am. And slowly started to pass along this to more and more people, to the point where May 22nd came around, and I chose May 22nd. I don't know why, but I just did. It just seemed like the most reasonable date that most people had available. It was a weekend. It was a Saturday. Was it a Saturday? Could be a Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Gathered about 100 or so people out in the woods to plant a tree, and that tree became the embodiment of my name, Miles. Planted the tree, had a great time, had a great party, danced my brains out, and from that day until this one, every time that I intone the name Miles, it reinforces what I'm all about, which is patience, quiet, and continuing the work of getting rid of all of those boxes to the point where I can function emotionally and keep going forwards. So, why did I change my name? I never liked my given name. And I never liked what it represented. Why did I choose Miles? Because it embodied everything it embodied that man that I met in Woods Hole many, many years ago, named Miles, who was the epitome of quiet presence and fullness, without being rude, without being snooty about it. He was just, this is who I am. But that's why I chose Miles. He is the embodiment of what I wanted to be. I don't like the party. I don't like being the center of attention. I did it to fill holes. Miles is holes filled and going out into the world and creating better. That's what I'm doing. It took a little while to get here, but I'm here. Alrighty. That is all the news that has fit the video today. Thanks a bunch for watching. I appreciate your time, your patience, and your patronage. This group of folks right here is my list of patrons. Without them, I pretty much wouldn't be here. The folks in bold and gold bold
have given way more than $3 or $5. Trust me, they've given way beyond the call of duty at this point. So thank you very much to my list of patrons. If you'd like to become one, I desperately need the cash because this project is not going to make itself. There are several projects down below if you're interested in seeing this stuff, so please go look at the description and find the project that works best for you. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and you'll be hooking a brother up with the YouTube algorithm. Also, follow the link for Patreon if you'd like to give $3, $5, $7, whatever you can afford. Trust me, it'll help me out with the projects. All right, that is enough yapping for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it somewhat useful and entertaining, if not educational. Have yourselves a great and amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere on the road. Bye!